Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's LandonRemixes here, and it is time for the 16th edition of Rapid Fire Reviews, the series on my channel where I talk about music that otherwise would not get talked about, either because other things come in priority and these albums and EPs just get so far pushed back that I don't feel like it's even worth it to do a full review of anymore, or I just listen through the music and figure that I couldn't fill a full review with content. Thankfully, we're 3 months into 2017, and this is the first Rapid Fire review I've had to do, so I'd say we're pretty on track, although there should be another rapid fire review coming next month that I'm also planning, and I hope to go back to this kind of 5-album and EP concept that I kind of started this series with, where the last ones have just been a lot more than that. You guys should at least be pretty happy with this edition because most of the albums and the EPs that I'm going to talk about today are ones that you guys specifically requested in the comments section. The first of those being the debut album by the British duo Aquilo called Silhouettes. This one, strangely enough, was actually received really well from music critics, but I myself couldn't really get into it. I originally found out about Aquilo through their collaboration with Madeon, Innocence, on his debut album, and that one was one of the more soft and tender songs on the album, and I kind of should have come to expect that when it came to this album as well, but for some reason I didn't. I was kind of expecting more kind of indie pop sounding stuff, some maybe more energetic kind of dancey pop stuff, but really with this album, a lot of it we're just getting these kind of drawn out piano ballads in my opinion. Of course there are a few punchier moments on this album taking more inspiration from electronic music, but those are kind of few and far between, and I'd say the majority of this album kind of bored me to death. It's nothing against Aquilo as musicians, in this case it's just more my taste. I just have a really hard time getting into those soft pop ballads, especially when they're the driving force behind the album, and that's why I've had problems with artists like Adele in the past. If you guys can get down with this album though, I have absolutely no problem with that. Up next is the newest EP from Quest called Hexes. I actually have not heard any music from Quest in quite a long time. Actually, I think it was his song Here With Me with Chime and Lone Moon. That was the last time that I had heard from him, so this EP came as a bit of a pleasant surprise for me. Containing some of the hardest music that Quest has ever done, i.e. the title track Hexes. My favorite of the three though has to be the song Fall Control, which has this great juxtaposition between these hard-hitting bro step sounds and these soft, feathery chords. Actually reminds me a lot of why I liked Here With Me and Chronicle so much. Chronicle, of course, being that really fluttery, melodic dubstep song from Lone Moon's debut album Amaranth that I had talked about. Overall though, I'd say that this EP was pretty fun. Next is the newest compilation from deadmau5, aptly titled Stuff I Used to Do. Strangely enough, this album only feels a little more like a compilation than deadmau5's last studio album, W-Drive 2016 album. Some of deadmau5's more experimental music he's ever done all kind of compiled into one album. This is probably actually my favorite compilation work that deadmau5 has put out to date, and although there's nothing on this album that really stuck out to me as like mind-bogglingly fantastic like there was on W-Drive 2016 album, I think this compilation made for something pretty enjoyable nonetheless, kind of, I feel like, even carrying a bit more of an 80s sound than W-Drive 2016 album did, which he had stated was going to be more of a theme for that one, so I thought that was a kind of weird thing. With a few rarities on here as well, this one is an absolute essential for a hardcore mouse fan. Next is the newest EP from the Knocks called TESTIFY in all caps, and of course that is the follow-up to their big debut album 55, which released last year. An album that I can comfortably say I enjoyed quite a bit, with it being completely inundated with pop guest appearances. This EP though I kind of feel like has less of a crisp, nostalgic feel than 55 did. In fact, I'd say that most of the content on this EP is pretty contemporary and radio friendly, with songs like Feel Love and Your Eyes being barely distinguishable from artists like the Chainsmokers, and Lie kind of taking on that Major Lazer dancehall sound. I can definitely say I was much more of a fan of 55 than I was with this EP, though I was able to get down to some of the content on this EP, like the first track Worship, which kind of feels like a B-side of 55. I probably would say that the Knocks are playing it safe with this EP, but I honestly think that's okay considering this is a follow-up just a year after the 55 album, so whatever. And the final one that I'm going to talk about today is the debut album from the M Machine, Glare. I'll be honest, in the past I haven't really found a lot of enjoyment in the M Machine's music. I think their style of electropop is a bit outdated, which I was not excited to see them go back to, especially after their last EP, Just Like, seemed to be a bit more experimental, with them going into more deep house elements and other genres. Straight and simple, this album I just set my hopes high for something a lot more expansive, and this album swiftly let me down. Though I probably would say that if you did like the M Machine's first couple EPs, you'll probably find a lot of enjoyment in this album too. I just couldn't get down with it myself. And that's about it for today. As always, I have the Spotify links for all of those albums and EPs down in the description, so you guys can check them out if you have any interest in doing so. Anyway, I'm LandonRemixes. I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Rapid Fire Reviews, and I'll catch you later. Peace.